What's up, world? Welcome to Amanda Plus One. It is your host, Amanda, and today marks the end of season 1 of Amanda Plus One. For those of you who might not know, I just got engaged. I'm about to get married. I'm doing a cross-country trip. All of the things are happening all at once. So I'm wrapping up season 1. And when I touch down on the other side and kind of settle in, then we'll figure out season 2. I am doing all of this with my person, my fiance, my husband to be, my soulmate. And speaking of soulmates, my plus one today is the founder of Relationship Rehab Program, which is proven to help high achieving women who are successful in life and career, but not in love, break free from toxic relationship patterns and attract their soulmates in 18 months or less. Yes. She's also created Healing the Mother Womb program, which helps her clients discover themselves through their patterns surrounding romantic relationships through their relationships with their mothers. Hi, Brianna.
Hi, Amanda.
Brianna Colette, everyone.
Hello. So happy to be here.
How are you today?
I'm good, girl. I mean, motherhood, wifehood, all of the things. Life is lifing, but I'm so happy to take this moment and be here with you.
How'd you get into the spiritual business? What? You're a psychic medium, a relationship coach. How does this happen? Because you definitely can't study this in school.
No, the school of life. That's for damn sure. So I've always been an entrepreneur. I had a complete other business in the beauty industry in LA. And I was doing the things that I thought I was supposed to do. I had the cool job and the cool car and I was taking the vacations. And in my mind, I had created a life that was on the outside looking in, really fucking cool and beautiful and noteworthy. And then it stopped kind of fulfilling me. And I had a crazy situation. I was living in West Hollywood and I witnessed the murder of my next door neighbor. And I won't go into too much of the details, but basically the man who was murdered, it was his adult son who had a mental health crisis. And I just happened to be, it was my next door neighbor in my condo in West Hollywood. And I happened to be in the right place at the right time because I did end up saving the life of his daughter and his wife. Sadly, the father passed away, but that really shook me, it rocked my world. And at the time, I was with a different person who I totally thought was, like you were saying, your person. And he turned out very much not to be. And I had this aha moment of how the fuck did I get here again? I thought this was going to be my person. I thought we were going to start the family, have all of the things. And yet again, I had dumped all of myself, given all of myself to somebody who was not my person, and I was left to pick up the pieces when that relationship fell apart a month after I witnessed a murder. So I was literally rock bottom, girl. It was not cute.
So you were cutting hair at a salon in LA. You had this fancy car. I remember you told me.
My Maserati.
Yeah, you were driving around a Maserati, living in West Hollywood. Then you had a breakup, witnessed a murder, and the other way around. And then you thought I just have to change my life. Something has to change.
Yeah. When you experience trauma like that, it literally changes your brain on a physiological level. And then it also really puts things into perspective of what's important. And it was kind of this perfect storm of reevaluating everything that I had been dumping energy into, making all of these decisions, doing things to please other people, doing things for the wrong reasons, for the external optics of it. And I really, what I call is I had my spiritual awakening. Because usually what happens is when you are on a path that's you in danger, girl. This is not the life that you're supposed to be leading, but oftentimes our ego convinces us for various reasons, this is what we need to do to prove ourselves for our, other people's validation, approval, etc. But you are not on the path that you should be on, the life you came here to lead, and it woke me the fuck up. Like, I woke up in that moment and I had to start really evaluating friendships, the reasons I was choosing certain men in my life. I even obviously started questioning my job. Like, is this what I really want to be doing with my life? Is this what I'm here to do? Is this the legacy that I want to leave for myself, for my family? And the answer was like this intuitive pull. Hell nah. This is not what we want to do.
No.
So through this process of acknowledging that something in my life, the trajectory that I was on, needed to change, I started really going into more of the spiritual realm. I had been in therapy, girl, since I was 9. Okay, my parents got divorced. My dad put me into therapy because, trauma. And therapy was very helpful up until a certain point. And spirituality opened up for me. And so I started like doing sound baths, and I've done ayahuasca like 6 times, and I really started delving into more of this holistic approach of how to really live a life that felt in alignment with who I am, the people I want to have around me, a purpose-driven life with a career that felt like I was like really helping other people and making a difference.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cheers to that.
Cheers to spiritual awakenings.
Yes. So every episode, I make my guests a drink. And today I made you a little stiffy.
I like it.
It's a raspberry gimlet. So it's gin, homemade raspberry syrup, a little bit of lime juice, and that's it. Figured, we can enjoy this on this beautiful Saturday.
It really is really pretty outside.
So tell me something. How does someone find their soulmate? It's a loaded question, I'm sure, but how does someone find their soulmate? How do you get on the path to finding your soulmate?
Yeah. So as I was talking about earlier, sometimes our ego is in charge, like that wounded ego part of ourselves that is like that internal voice that's kind of coming from a place of anxiety, or it's coming from a place of feeling less than, of not being enough. That's oftentimes why we're choosing certain partners, because there's a hurt, wounded part of us that is hoping that validation and feeling like we're good enough and feeling like we're chosen, that's the driving force and why we're choosing certain partners that are not good for us. And when we're in that space and we're holding on to a lot of hurt or trauma or wounding from childhood, from past relationships even, we are a perfect fit. Our unhealed, messy stuff is a mere like puzzle piece for another person who has the same messy, unhealed parts of themselves. And so that's where we get trauma bonding. That's where you kind of have these dynamics in relationships where it's like on and off, it's hot and cold, it's highs and lows, it doesn't ever really feel peaceful. It doesn't ever feel like easy. And I'm sure with your fiance, congratulations, so much of your life has felt easy, that like you don't have to force it, you don't have to spend so much time doing mental gymnastics trying to figure it the fuck out. When you come to a place of more wholeness and you heal and you go and look at and clean up your side of the street from the stuff that's happened to you, you then go bloop, 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 and you become a match for people who have also done similar internal reflective work of healing, of talking to a therapist, or, doing their own spiritual awakening, healing, activities, sound baths, whatever that could be for you. And then the both of you come into a relationship where each of you have really good tools. You have, the ability to conflict management, right? Like a little tiff doesn't derail you for weeks at a time, or you're able to come into this place in a healthy, conscious relationship with another person who feels whole within themselves. So to answer your question in a very long-winded, roundabout way, if you want to attract your soulmate, and there's a long list of all of these things that you would like to experience from them, you have to be in a place where you are also able to give that to them, because they deserve to receive the same things back from you.
So is it safe to say that when you're doing the work, your soulmate is also somewhere else doing the work? Okay. So your soulmate won't come to you unhealed. And okay,
if you're unhealed, you know what I mean? Everything's timing, everything's alignment in life, right? When things just click and fall into place. I always say that you don't just have one soulmate. It's kind of like there's these like layers of soulmates, right? Because soulmates could be your best friend. Like I have my best friend Omar in LA. Like he is my ride or die. We're definitely like soulmate besties. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's not just romantic partnerships, but at each level of wherever your healing is, of wherever you're coming into that relationship, there's also like-minded, energetically resonating people who also have the same tools, who also have the same wounding, that are going to meet you at that level. So when you really do your internal work, there's also other people who are striving and going after the same kind of life as you, that want to have a healthy relationship, that they're willing to take accountability and show up to conversations and fix things when things get messy, because relationships are messy. They're two imperfect people trying to figure it the fuck out together.
Yeah. And I've heard the term twin flame a lot. Like, what's the difference between a soulmate and a twin flame?
Okay. I'm going to speak to those of you who this is connecting to. Your twin flame is not the person you're supposed to end up with, babes. Okay? You are romanticizing trauma. Your twin flame is not the thing you should be going after. Twin flames are people who have an instant connection. Yes, that's why a lot of people get twin flames and soulmates confused, because like when you meet them, it's like, oh my God, it feels like coming home. It feels like this poetic star-crossed lovers, like out of a storybook. And so you romanticize a lot of the bullshit that, like the bullshit two-step, as I call it, in relationships. You're romanticizing a lot of stuff that's not healthy and good for you. And so there's a lot of this like push and pull. There's a lot of really deep soul lessons that you are here to reflect back to one another. And I always say to people, you can 100% marry your twin flame. If you want to choose to do life with someone who you have that dynamic with, you have free will. You can do whatever the fuck you want to do. No one's going to force you to have an easy life. But if you want ease and flow and feel like you can, especially as a woman, you can let your guard down in a relationship and be nurtured and be taken care of and be looked after in a very like loving, compassionate, healthy way by a man, that's a soulmate love. That's a different kind of energy. And I feel like you're nodding and smiling because I know that you're with your soulmate. Yes.
And it feels easy. It felt so easy when we met. Everything did, to the point where I almost self-sabotaged it. And I'm like, nope, too good. No, I refuse to settle in and get cozy, because what if something is pulled right from under me? Or like, no, I cannot let my guard down. I can. And I was always talking right back to myself as that sabotaging was happening live, and saying like, no, but there's absolutely nothing wrong with this. Like, everything's okay. Everything's fine. And that was the more of the tug and the pull that I had. It was with myself and watching myself about to repeat stuff that I've done in the past. But the rifts were never with him, or in our relationship. And I should tell you, when we met, I thought, I knew it was my twin flame according to like all of the
signs
black,
were there.
Yeah, the signs were there, and all the black dark holes that I jumped into on the internet reading about all this stuff. And what I realized later in hindsight was that all that person was for me was, or that situation, that twin flame, having found that and coming across him at that time, it gave me the courage to leave my very stagnant 11-year relationship. It made me believe and understand and see that I can actually be attracted to other men. Like, it's still there. I can have stuff in common with other men, because, you're in a relationship. I was in a relationship when I was 18 for 11 years. Come on, I'm almost 30. Right. Like, I've been with one person. You don't think you're about other men really like that. And our lives were very intertwined together and all that stuff. So it's like I met him and I could have sworn it was a lot more than it was. And I was talking to everyone who would listen about it. And I was like, I just know he loves me. He loves me. There was no contact. He was not contacting me. I was the one like, when is he going to call me? I also had my ego up. It was inflated. It was big. I was like, I'm not reaching out. I'm not going to be the first to message. I'm not going to look around, but constantly just like thinking that this was my person and that we were in love and that he was just scared and he must be like, have gone through so much family trauma and that's why he can't connect and like all these things. And
the excuses that you're making and rationalizing for his shitty behavior.
Exactly. Oh my goodness. And I thought, you know, like 3, 4, 5 years later, this relationship is still in my head. And I'm like, there's still something there. And we must have met up and hung out like a total of 3 times. But it felt so like, it felt so powerful, you know, how it feels. And I felt like I was looking at a mirror and he was showing me myself and I was showing him his, which is like why we were propelling away from each other. But I can tell, like, whenever those few times that we hung out, he took a lot of me with him because I would see it in his life and he would spread it around somewhere else. And that hurt me a lot more because I'm like, I'm a person, like, just come hang out with me. You don't have to like take the way that I inspire you and bring it out to other places and other people. Like, we can do this. Like, oh my God, I made up so much shit.
Yeah.
And now I'm in a soulmate connection and it's
Night and day. Night and day. There was something you said that I'm so happy you brought it up about the self-sabotaging when you meet somebody that potentially could be it. And this is something I see with like successful, smart, intelligent women who have their life together all of the time. A lot of women that I meet and that I work with, they are able to present, right, that they have their shit together because they do in a lot of areas of their life. They're smart, they're successful, they're driven, they're educated, they're motivated, all of these amazing qualities. And then oftentimes what happens is they meet somebody that they're like, oh, maybe actually this guy could be it. And then what happens is it's like, the facade falls away of the mask that a lot of us women, that masculine mask that we portray to the world, right? Of that like exterior, of needing to be in control. And then you get into a relationship with a man and then you want to soften and be in your feminine. You want to, right? Like be in that space. And then all of the shit that is unhealed and messy and where the self-sabotage comes into play. And that ends up rising to the surface. And then you kind of spin out. A lot of women I talk to like spin out in their brain. And they're like hyper analyzing everything. And then like the guy is kind of like, what the fuck is going on? And then oftentimes what happens is you have a potential person that you really could have a great relationship with.
There's this short tale of like these 2 kids. They're in school and one of them has a brand new guitar and the other kid loves the guitar. And he's like, you should come over to my house later to play with it. I'll let you play with it. He's like, okay, perfect. School's out. They each go home. And then the other kid does his homework and goes on his way to the friend's house to go play with the new guitar. And he's walking there. He's like, oh, I cannot wait to play with this guitar. And he's walking on his way, you know, and oh man, it's so exciting. Like I have not played with a guitar before. Like I'm so happy about this. And he's walking, he's like, wow, he's real nice to like let me play with his guitar, like, you know, like that's so nice of him to let me come over. And then he's like, I mean, it's just a guitar at the end of the day. Like I don't see a reason why he wouldn't let me play with it. He's still walking to the house and talking to himself, and he's like, honestly, like if he would have not let me play with that guitar, that would have been a little too much on his end because like, come on, it's just a guitar and I'm your friend and walking. He's like, you know what? This is not even a big a deal that he has this guitar. And then he finally gets to the friend's house, knocks on the door, and the friend's like, hey, come on in. He's like, you know what? You can shove your guitar up your ass. And the friend is like, what happened? Literally, we talk ourselves out of things and we go round and round and round and round, and then the thing just falls apart. And it was all because of that self-sabotage. And I worked so hard, I swear to you, on this relationship to not do that because it was there. It was so easy, and every day was just like, fine, there was no game. And I told him this when we started getting closer. I was like, I'm so glad we skipped all the games of like who's texting who and let me take 20 minutes to respond so it doesn't look like I'm just available whenever you need me to be, and like all these, like we skipped all of that and we got straight to it, and there's no going back. And you learn a lot about your worth as well. You have to know it to get there first. You have some idea of your worth, but then after that you're like, oh, psh, I'm always I'm exactly who I thought I was.
Yeah.
You know?
I can say something on worth, by the way.
Yes.
Again, so specifically speaking to successful, independent, smart, intelligent women, oftentimes we have this like logical understanding of being in or having worth, right? Like you can list off all of the things that make you a great catch, right? all of that external stuff. But a lot of times what happens is with women that I meet is they have like the logical textbook understanding, but deep inside they don't have that embodied worthiness, where if you really were to sit down with them and really talk about their insecurities or their fears, or, you know, what they go to sleep with at night when they're by themselves, they actually don't believe it. They don't have this embodied sense. And that's where they're getting confused in and getting stuck in toxic pattern relationships. Maybe they're always going after situationships, or maybe they always go after emotionally unavailable guys, or their relationships kind of like start good and then maybe after 3 to 6 months they implode, and they never really get that really healthy soulmate connection relationship that they're looking for. And that's really where it's important that if you are kind of noticing that there's patterns or behaviors or situations that aren't giving you the success that you're looking for, oftentimes it's time to go deeper within and really start to get curious on a whole other level. I tell women all the time, stop tiptoeing around your healing. Stop tiptoeing. Stop thinking you can do a little bit over here and a little bit over there. The proof is in the pudding, sis. So if you don't have the thing in your hot little hand that you really want to experience, it's not a bad thing that you haven't done what it takes to get it yet. It's actually a good thing. Because imagine if you had done everything that you needed to do and it still wasn't fucking here. That's depressing. It's actually a good thing that there are all these stones unturned deep within yourself that is going to reveal this like deeper inner part of yourself of when you really like come out of the cocoon. We talk about that in spirituality, right? Like the chrysalis and transformation, right? That inner transformation of really stepping up and being that embodied, confident, powerful, internally aligned woman. That's magnetic to men. Right? When you have this like feminine confidence, it's not about being smaller. It's not about being weaker. It's not about being quieter. I'm a loud ass chick. Okay. Like I take up a lot of space, and I'm with my soulmate. We've been together 5 years. We have a beautiful daughter, Messiah. She's 2 years old, and I don't have to be less of myself in that relationship. I get to be all of myself and then some. And it's all safe, it's all okay, because I am fully integrated with those parts of myself. So it's okay when the mask comes down and I have to be raw and vulnerable and imperfect and messy in front of him, because I know that that's a safe space for me, and I don't self-sabotage the relationship. You know, like if we aren't deeply okay with ourselves, oftentimes we don't really want other people to see what we're really working with, because that feels scary. That feels unsafe. We've been criticized in the past, like my mother wound program, right? If in your childhood you always needed to worry about other people's feelings or the perception, or, you know, always making sure that things look perfect in order to be lovable, you can't make mistakes. It's not safe. Then you're going to have a really hard time being in a soulmate relationship, because you don't get your soulmate and then it's like you're riding off into the fucking sunset and everything's roses and roses and rosé at the sunset every weekend. Like it's not like that. You get into your soulmate relationship and then life starts lifing, and a soulmate relationship is designed to help you expand. It's designed to help you, to support you, to go after the things that you're here to create, to co-create with your person. And so, as always, there's always shadow that is revealed that you need to look at, confront, heal through, move through, grow through, so that you can be the container to receive it. And your soulmate is a catalyst for you to do bigger and better things together. But from a healthy perspective, like a twin flame, for example, you'd do a lot of self-analysis. There'd be a lot of anxiety about like the fights that you have. Oftentimes you're internalizing, or they're projecting, or they're making you feel like the problem. It doesn't feel healthy and safe to grow in a twin flame relationship. Whereas a soulmate relationship, you're like, yes, this is uncomfy. I'm okay to let you see these parts, because I know that on the back end, we're going to be even stronger, have even deeper roots to create even more amazing fucking things together.
Yeah. I love how popular it is to live life with someone else, to choose someone else to live life with, because it is like marriage is popular, family is popular, like all of these things. So I love that that's the case. I have older friends who've never been married, don't have kids, and aren't in partnerships, and they're in their 70s and happy, like their careers have always been their thing. So that there's definitely other different types of lives out there being lived, but I love how popular it is, and just that the soulmate idea exists because it's all about doing life together, healthy, like you just said.
Well, it brings fullness to your life,
Yeah.
It brings fullness and purpose, and as I always say, like lots and lots of expansion. And I think all of us want to move forward. We want to grow. We don't want to look back a year from now or 2 years, from now and feel stagnant, that like we haven't gone after our dreams, that we haven't been audaciously going towards the things that we want to create for ourselves in our life. And I think a soulmate partnership makes that easier. Many hands make the light or the load light, right? It's like there's an extra set of hands, especially as a woman. We're not always going to have good days. Like there's days when we're like down, or there's days where we're honoring our cycle, right? Or we just don't have the same energy levels, right? The 24-hour cycle is very masculine, right? That's how men's hormone cycles work. Women's are every 28 days. So we're going to have weeks where we're like, feel like we can conquer the world. And then we're going to have weeks where we just like need to lay in bed and eat, and just like chill out. And so honoring those ebbs and flows of being a feminine woman, it's so helpful to have this like masculine partnership where every day he hits the reset button and he can just like pour into you and support you. And, it truly is partnership.
Yeah.
You're on the same team.
One of the things I had to let go of in order to get into this space was my masculine side. I had to tone it down a lot of it.
So what do you think you had to do to like tone down your masculine side? Because I think a lot of people get that confused.
Well, I pretty much raised myself just in the way that I came up. So it was very necessary for me to just be alert and be on my toes all the time. And, have that. If I don't do it for myself, then nobody will,
Hyper independence.
And if my parents weren't doing it, then a man is not going to do it. A friend is not going to do it, And one of the things I did was learn about my cycle. Learn about the phases. That helped me a lot because I realized we only have 4 weeks in a month. There's the luteal phase, which is like my toughest phase, where I don't want to go to the gym. I'm really hungry and I just kind of want to be in bed. And then there's the week where I'm menstruating, and then it's like, okay, well, this is happening. And it's like, well, let's see how much strength I have for anything. This is like a touch and go thing. The week after that, I feel like I can conquer the fucking world. Like I could do whatever. And then the week after that is just like, okay, this is about to start again. So getting in touch with that helped me be like, oh, I really can't help a lot of these things. All I have to do is be in tune with it. And if I need to sit down for 5 days, then I'm going to sit down for 5 days. And I want to like let that be the case. Before it was just like, oh no, well, I got to keep going. And if I don't go to work, then not this and that. So joining with a man and connecting with him and communicating and saying, I need to sit down for these 5 days to 8 days around this time. And and you're going to have to kind of do the stuff, the lifting.
Pick up the slack.
Yeah, please, or like, please rub my feet, or my lower back really hurts, or like that I couldn't do before because I felt like, women, we feel like we have to provide, or we have to like also not provide like men do, but in other ways. Give attention and, all like make things comfortable and be like, I'm the one, see? Yeah. Like I'm doing it like this.
Well, that's the ultimate feminine wound, which is what we got from our mothers, is extreme people pleasing and over giving to the detriment of ourselves, that it's coming from a place of scarcity, that we're constantly over giving and needing to provide things for other people, because that's where we get our self-worth. Like we feel like as long as we're giving and we are proving our value and our worth to people, that they'll keep us around. And that's where a lot of women go after guys, where it's like their girlfriends are telling them like, girl, tell him to kick rocks. Like, what are you doing? No. And the fantasizing and the romanticizing all in their head, because they feel the connection on their end, because that's what feels normal and that's what feels safe, is when they are overgiving, because that feels like connection to them.
Why is it so common for women to keep going back to their exes?
I think, especially for women, like my demographic, right, is like women who are in their 30s and into early 40s. They're established women. I think there's a piece that comes into play that they're worried that like there's nothing better for them out there. That they're genuinely worried that like this is their chance. And so when you've put a lot of your eggs and your time and your energy into somebody, when I peel back the layers with someone of like, okay, well, why do you think that you like really want to stay in this relationship? Usually the answer is, I'm just worried that like nobody else would want me, that I think this is as good as it's going to get for me. And that like makes me really sad. Like each time a woman opens up to me and says that to me, like my heart hurts for her a little bit, because it's like, don't you see how amazing you are and how beautiful you are and how much you have to offer? And here you are picking at the low-hanging fruit with old boy who clearly is not stepping up and showing up for you in the way that you need. Because that's one thing I will tell women. Like, if you're having to question, like, where you stand with him, whether he wants to be in it, whether, you know, this is the thing for you, the answer is probably no. Mm-hmm. Because a man who is going to be your person, a soulmate, a man who's your soulmate, is never going to leave it to chance whether you walk out of his life or not. Come hell or high water, this man is going to move mountains. He's not going to let some trivial ass shit come between the two of you, because that's a man's role, right? Like, they're the aggressor. Not doesn't mean aggressive, but just like in a masculine quality. They're the chasers. They're the ones that are the doing. They're the ones that are like the courting, right? In a very traditional sense. He's not going to let you walk out that door over some fight. Like, he's going to pick up the phone. He's going to make it better. You're not going to be in your ego and like, I'm not going to pick up the phone and call him. Like, he's not going to do that to you. Mm-hmm. So if this person is okay to just like let it linger and leave this question in the air, whether you're going to like work it out together, that's not your person. I can like 100% guarantee you that.
I kind of want to talk about a little bit of your relationship rehab program. Yes. So like, what are 5 signs that you need to check into relationship rehab?
Well, literally, it's like checking yourself into rehab. You are addicted to toxic love. Going back to your ex, right, is a sign where like, you know that you should do better, but you can't do better for whatever reason. Like always being in situationships, right? Just having that self-awareness that there are patterns and stuff that is like you're breaking your own heart. And I attract a lot of women who are very self-aware. They're not new to therapy. They're not new to the work, but something still isn't fucking shifting. Like, they're seeing other women get engaged. They're seeing other people start their lives and start their families, if that's what you want. Because like you said, not everybody wants to get married. Not everybody wants to ride off into the sunset with their person, you know? But if you do, if that is on your heart to receive it, and through trial and error, and you feel like you keep putting yourself out there, and you feel like you are hopeful that this next person is going to be it, and each time like it somehow implodes or falls apart, and you're able to see like, okay, there's definitely a pattern here, and you're able to have that like self-awareness, but you don't know what is the root of the crux of the shit of the thing that needs to shift. That's when you check yourself into relationship rehab, because this program is my signature process of the exact process that like I went through to have my spiritual awakening, to come back into myself, to find the embodied, authentic self-worth. And it's the same program and process that I've taken my clients through, that I have that 80% success rate in 18 months or less. And then on top of it, there's a piece where I have embodied and I have in my life the relationship that I want, and through that understanding of what it feels like, what it should be like, because so many women that I meet, their baseline for what is healthy and what it should feel like, they've never actually experienced it. They didn't have it from their dad. They didn't have it from their mom. They didn't have it in any of their other previous relationships. So how do you know what it is if you've never experienced it? And so I come in with my intuitive psychic mediumship, and I really like laser in on what's coming up for you, what are the pieces that we need to look at to shift and to heal, Because as soon as that pain and that wounding falls away, then you're literally like, it's not magic of what I'm doing over here. Like, it's not this like woo woo shit. Like, it's actually pretty logical, you know, like I just have a proven system that works for people. And then their person shows up like very, like what you were talking about with your person, very easy, a lot of flow, and not a lot of like stress and anxiety in the relationship. I didn't answer your full question, but I was just channeling and flowing. So.
Yeah, no, this works perfectly, because I feel like this program is so helpful, because once you speak with someone like you about this and you're pinpointing everything, it's kind of like a wall map where you're like, oh, this is kind of where a lot of the hurt happened, or this really kind of shaped me. Then you start dating with intention, and you start listening to all of the voices or the voice inside you that is saying something, or that is drawing you towards one way, or like, oh, don't do this, or take it easy, or don't self-sabotage, like all these things. But you do need, maybe the help you need is like laying out where the issue is. You know, I think what helped me get closer to my soulmate was 6 years of being single, and that twin flame ship situationship. You know, like all of those things, both of those things, and all of that time, and the solo traveling, which is how you and I met. Like all of that like really put me in this position to find my person. So I want to ask too, what should single people out there be doing in order to position themselves to find their person?
I mean, obviously join relationship rehab. What should you be doing? I honestly, 100%. I think that you need to be investing in yourself, in your own personal growth, in the same way that you're investing in your career, in going on vacations, in saving up to buy the
investing in the stock market. Same way you invest in yourself.
Same way you are investing in all of these external things. You need to be investing in yourself, because that's who that person is coming home to at the end of the day. You can't fake the funk with your person. They are going to see it all. And so if you've got some raggedy shit left over from a relationship, if you've got some not so great habits or patterns or defense mechanisms that ultimately always implode your relationships, sis, it's time to start spending the same amount of money that you do on the handbags and the cars and the vacations as you do on your inner self.
You heard it here first.
I literally had a conversation with somebody. I'm just talking now. I had a conversation with a girl who wanted to join a program and work with me. And I was like sitting with her and I'm like, well, I think that this would 100% like help you. Oh, I can't afford it. And so that is a usual like thing that comes up for people, right? Because like usually I love talking about money also, but like money is like one of the biggest mirrors of how we feel about ourselves. And when I dug a little bit deeper around what her finances were, she did have the money. She's fresh off a breakup. She wanted to buy a Gucci handbag instead of investing in healing the stuff that imploded her last relationship. I was like, girl, your priorities are fucked. Like, this is what I'm talking about. But we think that like the external stuff, the dopamine hit that we're going to get from sashaying through a nice expensive restaurant with our new Louis bag on our hand, like that's going to like make us feel better, or that's going to help us attract the right type of person because the optics look good, that because we look sexy, or that because we look but that's not who they're coming home to every night. Like, you know what I mean? Zit cream on, hair in a messy ass bun that hasn't been washed in a week, and sweatpants when you're on your period. Like that's after a stressful ass week of work. Like that's the real life person that you're doing life with. Yeah. You know what I mean?
That's very true. So how important do you think are friendships to the formation and the growth of a relationship?
You mean like, is it important to be friends with that person first and then?
The friendships surrounding you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It was a question that came to me as I was getting prepared for this chat with you, because you talk a lot about all types of relationships. You talk about relationships with your career, relationships with money, relationship with your parents, relationship with friends, and then obviously the romantic relationships.
Because you're only as happy as your healthiest relationships. That's the truth. It doesn't matter whether it's like a relationship or your job or whatever. Like, oftentimes I find with women, when you're not in a good place, like misery loves company kind of a vibe. And so if you're struggling and not really doing anything about it, you're kind of like stuck in the mud with people, and that's what you have in common. And then when you start to really start healing yourself, and you really start taking a more intentional approach to like the kind of life that you want to lead, I can guarantee you that when you start healing and when you start leveling up and when you stop being okay with bullshit, there's probably a lot of friends in your life that need to fall away as well, because they're okay hyping you up for bullshit. They're okay helping you to rationalize this toxic relationship with him, or it's the blind leading the blind, you know? And so I think that it's less about trying to change the people around you and force them to do better. I think that's oftentimes, I think just as humans, that's our natural nature, is when something's not working or we're unhappy about something, especially in relationships. Well, you need to do this and you need to be better and I need to, it's all of this like external projection of what we want other people to do, when really what we need to do is like go within and look at ourselves. Like one of my favorite quotes, and I'm probably going to butcher it because I always butcher a quote, but it's like, if you're pointing at other people saying that they should do the healing, it's a major sign that you are the one that needs to do the healing. Because it's a lot easier to look at what other people aren't doing. It gets you off the hook from really being honest with yourself about what you need to be doing.
A new one that I just heard of was, if you're pointing a finger, 3 are pointing back at you. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So, you know, check yourself on like who you're blaming for what, you know?
Yeah.
And on this topic of friendships, I'll tell you what happened to me recently that just reminded me of what you were talking about. Was I had this friend and we were really close. We had distance between us. I was living in one city, she was living in another. We met in one, and then I moved, and then, you know, we would visit like every so often, but it felt like close because we can always talk very sincerely about mostly the things that we want and the things that we desire out of life, and, you know, who our partner's gonna be and what they're gonna look like and how much money we want to have and like all these things. It was a constant friendship of just talking about that. Mm-hmm. And then, but it was more, I'm considering it trauma bonding because we both wanted all these things. I don't know what we each were doing in order to position ourselves towards that. Didn't seem like anything, but it was a lot of that. The moment we stopped being friends.
You met your person?
Yeah. Not only that, I got my dream apartment, my dream car, my dream person, you know, got myself out of debt. Like, it was like everything just zoop.
Yep.
And you know, friendship breakups hurt. So like I was still hurt, and I wasn't like, it was like the universe being like, look, this had to happen. Look at everything you have now. And me refusing to like be buddy with the universe because I'm like, but wait, this was still like my friend or whatever. And then when I think back, it's like, or even my fiance would ask me like, okay, well, what?
I love how that sounds, my fiance.
I know, right? I was about to say boyfriend. I was about to say boyfriend. It's insane. But he's like, well, what was it about this friend that you love so much? Like, what was it about her? Like, just getting to know her, because he also didn't meet her, which is another great thing. And like, they never met each other. And I was like, I don't know. She was just always down for everything. That's literally the only answer that comes up. There was a lot of signs in this friendships of like having to, whatever happens when you leave a friendship, dissolve it or step back or put distance. Like, there was all these signs throughout the years, you know, but the distance helped a lot, you know, and you can, like Dijon mustard, you know, just a little bit, you know, a little too much. It could easily be too much, you know.
You had to take it in doses. I think friendship breakups are some of the most painful breakups. You posted something on Instagram a while ago, maybe like a year plus ago, and you just were like getting, you know, people's hot takes, you know, anonymously. And I love that you did that, because I think friendship breakups are so painful. Like, and in regards to what we're talking about, like finding your person, this was my experience. I noticed that friends that I had been friends with for like, I had one girlfriend that was like a decade, that we were like ride or die. And then when I really started healing myself and working on myself and I found my person, there was like a couple of friendships like gone. And I was like, there was no fight. There was nothing that happened. There was no drama. I didn't fuck your man. Like, I was so confused why there was this experience of no longer wanting to invest in the relationship. And of course, at the time, it was very, very hurtful. But now knowing that what I know, it's that like when someone gets serious about being happy and really starts like doing the inner work, it's always a mirror for other people in your life, whether that's your brother, your sister, your mom, your dad. People are uncomfortable when you start leveling up, when you get tighter boundaries, when you're no longer available for bullshit that is not good for you, whether that's drinking, doing drugs, partying, right? Spending too much money, you know, at wherever, at restaurants, at the club, I don't care. It makes people uncomfortable because those people benefited from you not honoring yourself. They benefited on the back end when you would say yes, when you meant no.
The empath in me wants to say they didn't even know that they were doing it. No, this was unconscious.
They don't. It's unconscious.
Yeah.
Because most people, unfortunately, we are, as humans, inherently selfish. We are. Like, we're always, it's that survival self-preservationist in us.
I've always believed that selflessness is impossible.
Yeah. And so it's like, you know, how I look at it, like moving on from any relationship, right? And relationships get to evolve. There get to be 2.0 versions, especially with your family, right? Because like that's blood. Sometimes you do need to take a step back for a time being to allow things to integrate and fall into a healthier space. But I think that knowing what I know now, that me going deeper and like shining more brightly for myself was uncomfy for other people. And so it's like you just have to be okay and hope, because you can't, it makes no sense to like hold any ill will towards people. Everyone's like the 4 Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz, right? I don't know if you've read that book, but like
course,
everyone is truly doing the best that they fucking can. And so when you walk around knowing that like, oh, and not to be like a bitch, but like, oh, sweetie, that was the best that you could do. That's okay.
Yes.
That is okay. But it's not enough for me. And I'm the type of person, I'm a Capricorn, right? So I'm a goat. We want to get to the top of the mountain. And I'm very much like in human design, like I'm a role model is in human design. I don't know if you know a lot about that. But like, I'm very much like the type of energy of like, let's bring everybody with us. But I had to learn, like, I can't do that. I can't force people to want to ascend and rise with me and let's all do better. Like, I very much love this collective energy, which is why I have programs and courses and all of these things for women, but it's their choice. They have to want to do it. I had to get out of this space of like trying to pull up my family, fix my mom, fix my brother, fix my relationships. Like, stop trying to make everybody a fucking project. Worry about yourself and everything will fall into place.
That friendship survey that you mentioned, I did that with my friend Lenore, who has a weekly newsletter, and she was writing about friendship breakups. So we gathered a bunch of data from people.
But it was so juicy.
Yeah, from like their locations to a name if they want to share it, their age, how long the friendship has been broken up for, and how long they were friends. And then notes on the side and a few other questions. And just reading through this, the hurt that I felt, just people
hearing stories.
Yeah. And one of the questions was, do you want closure, or why or why not, you know, or did you get closure? And a lot of people were like, I would want it. I would have loved to have gotten closure because I never heard anything from this person ever again. And other people said, no, I absolutely don't want to. There's no room in my life for this friendship, you know. And other people, I just felt all of the heaviness just reading this from people. And I was going through a friendship breakup at the time, which prompted the whole thing. And that helped me so much, because I'm like, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one out here dying, like, from all this pain of having lose a friend who is not giving you the decency of talking, communication, you know. And I tried for a bit, you know, and it wouldn't happen. And there was so much miscommunication, but I had already known her too well, and I knew there was no way I was gonna like break through that. So, you know, I just kind of like stopped, but I started worrying about myself. And
exactly.
Yeah. And
figured out how to go get happy.
Yeah, because every day I would wake up and like very sad, and
It's
kind of like in pain.
hurtful.
Yeah, and at this point we're living in the same city, so we're like close by, and every day just. And then I was like, you know what, I gotta switch it up. It took me a whole year just to actually take the next step. So for a full year, I was as if the thing was so fresh that it happened yesterday. And then after the year passed, I'm like, all right. And then the year after that, I finally said like, oh, I miss you. Like, how are you? All these crazy. That was
Not well
not
received.
well received at all. And yeah, so I just decided like, all right, like this is it,
What do you think you needed to? Because I always think that every relationship, anything that happens in our life, I see it as an opportunity for a lesson to heal, to up level, to know more about ourselves. I think everything's an opportunity. What do you think that you needed to learn in relationships as to why you attracted that friendship into your life for however many years?
Interesting. I never thought of that. Like, but I don't know. I think I needed to learn that. Just, it sounds very cliche, but letting go. Like, I was holding so tight onto trying to make this work. I was holding so tight on trying to be understood. I wanted her so bad to know.
Isn't that what we do in relationships?
Yes,
Right? Good for us?
exactly that. I wanted her so badly to know how much I love her, and for her to understand so hard how what she thought in her head was not true. Like, had no kind of truth to it. But I knew I wasn't going to win against like the story that she made up in her head. But that is what we do in relationships. So like letting go, like really like fully giving up. Like giving up is something that surrendering. That was something that was very heavy in my masculine energy. I'm not letting go. I'm gonna fix this. I'm gonna make this right. I'm gonna go. Like, it was all up to me.
And did you do that in past relationships too? Romantic? I know you had the 11-year one.
Yeah,
but
that was
think
like,
back to other relationships in your life where that was the theme? Because that was you breaking a cycle of pattern in relationships. Because wherever you go, there you are.
Yeah. I was always trying to fix things. Always just trying to be like, I can make this better. I can make this better. Like, come on, let's figure it out. Or like, oh, you worried about this?
Why don't you want to figure this out with me?
But I have solutions. Let's look through them. Yep. And I think this friendship just helped me stop doing all of that and realize like the key things, the things that matter and that are jiving with me and in my life are going to be in my life, and they are. And another thing I realized not that long ago that I'm trying to sit more with is that I'm not everybody's cup of tea. Nobody likes everybody, and nobody is liked by everybody. And before I was even more in control of that, or like, oh well, here, like, you can like me, or
controlling the narrative.
Yeah. And now I'm just like, oh, I'm gonna just let go, like even on social media, I was just like, if something frustrates me, I'm unfollowing. And I'm not even muting, because like, what's the point? Yeah, I'm out. Yeah. Like, I don't want to see this anymore. And it's like, I just don't like I'm just less about protecting myself, because I was very much about, I'm protecting my energy and nothing can come into my space.
Spiritual bypassing.
What is that? Spiritual bypassing?
It's when we take spiritual beliefs, right? Like abundance, or like taking the higher road, or compassion or forgiveness. And we use it as a way to like get over things or move beyond things, because it's it's easier, right? To just be like, oh, well, live and let God, and like whatever, and like non-attachment. But there's a part of spirituality that is 100% about like fire and like, like anger. There's like that mama bear energy. Like, that's a forceful energy that is sacred. And I think a lot of times people don't want to sit with rage or anger or uncomfortable feelings about like, how they, especially women, it's not okay for women to be angry or have rage or resentment. Like, and to outwardly express it. Like, you're bad, you're not likable, you're not like a good girl if you have those feelings. And so back to like going into those deeper parts of yourself, like I work with some women who don't even know how to express that, like their anger about what has happened to them. And they'll use spiritual consciousness beliefs as like, but you know what? I'm just going to sit in gratitude. Okay, bitch, that's fine. But like, you're not honoring what's really coming up for you. You're not alchemizing and healing the reason that you have the rage. Like, you can't just like slap gratitude on everything and not honor what's really going on beneath the surface. It's just going to fester. And as soon as something triggers you again, boop, there it is. because whatever is being revealed is asking to be healed. So that's why in relationships, you keep kind of coming back to these patterns of doing the same thing, even though you're logically trying. Maybe you're aware that you fall for emotionally unavailable guys, or you're aware that you go after guys who don't want the same things of you, whatever is true for you. But then you can't logically like outthink your emotional knee-jerk reactions to things, because it's still there. So you can't just, oh, I'm working on it, or like I said, tiptoeing around it. Like, no, it needs to be felt, it needs to be honored, and go deeper within to get curious about like, well, why have you been feeling this way in every single relationship that you get into? I wonder why that is.
Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about
We can talk a lot.
your mother wound program, and mostly I'm curious about like, how does one's relationship with their parents or the lack thereof affect one's romantic relationships?
Well, especially as a mom now, and like my daughter's 2 years old, and I've seen the progression from infancy, right, to this helpless, little baby who needs you for everything, to now a toddler who has so much opinions and so much personality, right? It's like I've seen that natural progression. Your parents were the baseline for human connection, but specifically your mother. And I'm talking about your biological mother, because you lived inside of her, because she has your DNA, because when a baby comes out of the womb, they don't know that between themselves and their mom that they're two separate beings. They think that their mother is them. Yeah, it's crazy. Wow. Not until they're like, don't quote me on the exact months, but I think it's not until like close to a year old that they don't have that cognitive understanding of where their mother ends and they begin. And so your mom, whatever her nervous system is, whether it's dysregulated, whether she's got trauma passed down from her mother, she's anxious, she's stressed, she's worried, she's emotionally immature, not ready for motherhood, doesn't have the capacity to put her own shit aside and really nurture the child. The child doesn't take a lack of love or a lack of their needs being met as something wrong with the parent. The child internalizes, this is my fault, this is something that is wrong with me, and therefore I am not lovable. And this happens specifically in the first 18 months of your life, where your nervous system is being hardwired for what feels safe. And as I can tell you, as a mom, babies cry all of the time, and your bandwidth is not always like, everything's great and everything's amazing. And I have so many tools, and I have worked on myself so much, and I'm still in motherhood like, damn, this is like a really serious job. Like, I have another person's like emotional and mental well-being on the line. And I think that the generation before us did not even have the conversations. They didn't even have the awareness. They didn't have the tools of just how much your mental health affects a young baby that they are not able to communicate about. It gets stored in their nervous system. And what happens when you're in a fight with your person, right? Sometimes you say things that you don't mean. Maybe you're just like so angry, or you're anxious, or sometimes there's actual somatic. Maybe you're like shaking and trembling. You're so upset. Or maybe you feel like in relationships that you have to walk on eggshells, that you don't feel safe, that you don't know how to be vulnerable because you're scared that they're going to judge you or criticize you, or all of these things come back to what was normalized as your baseline on a neurological nervous system function in intimate romantic relationships.
It's crazy because it is, people think like, I have my relationship with my parents over here, my friendships over here, my career and work over here, and then I have my relationship over here, but everything is connected. So it's so 2007 to assume that if you don't, that, the unhealthy relationship you have with your mom is not affecting you in other areas with your other ships. So get with the program, literally.
Yeah.
The mother wound program.
But I mean, like, even into adulthood, right? Like, I was someone who had my mom and my dad got divorced. My mom like literally left the country, moved back to England. I had a lot of abandonment trauma emotionally and physically from my parents. And then lo and behold, I had a whole bunch of abandonment trauma in my relationships that caused me to self-sabotage, that caused me to look for reasons to leave. Maybe there was like a little hiccup, or let me leave you before you leave me, sort of a thing. And so I had a lot of that into my adulthood in relationships. But then my mom and I also had, like, whenever I would be around her, like holidays, like I always felt like really triggered, like really back to how I felt as a kid when I would go to her home, and like she would criticize me for like opening up, I don't know, like a can of corn or something the wrong way. It's like my reaction to what was happening in real time like didn't match. And that's how you know when you have a trigger. I always say, like, if it's hysterical, it's historical. If you're having a really strong emotional reaction to something in real time, but it doesn't really fit the scenario, it's because this is not happening today. This is happening that happened to you 20 years ago. And you don't have the skill set or the emotional bandwidth to be able to help yourself and deal with it in a healthy way. So then what do? We project, we internalize, we self-sabotage, we do all of these unhealthy behaviors in order to soothe ourselves, because we don't know how to self-soothe from a healthy space, because our mom didn't teach us, because she doesn't know how to do it for herself. Mm-hmm. So how can you give from an empty cup?
Mm-hmm. It's about changing, breaking the cycle. Right. So that there's this, I guess, TikTok maybe or something I saw yesterday where it says this is their childhood, but this is also your motherhood. Mm-hmm. So like, what are they going to remember? So you should remember that they're going to remember, and like all these kinds of things. And I kind of really enjoyed that, because it is two people. Right. Once you give birth to this kid. Yeah, they're a kid, they're a child, toddler, whatever, but they're a person now. And you're just coming up together. Such different perspectives, obviously, because of the difference in age, but also just how we remember things and how we feel things. And yeah, wow. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of work to do.
We all do. I think that I don't want ever people to feel overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, like the work never ends. Yeah, no, because if it ends, then we exit this plane. Then we're out of here. But we all came here on earth, this is what I believe, from a karmic standpoint, to try to do better than we've done before. Mm-hmm. And so every day is a new opportunity to get curious about ourselves, to have healthier relationships, to feel more whole, to feel more like aligned with our life. Like, you've had those days, right, where you're just like, everything feels good and it's like falling into place and everything feels amazing and you feel so in touch and aligned with yourself. I believe like that's what we're striving for all the time. But life is duality. You cannot have the light without the dark. You can't have the good times without the bad times. And it's like the peaks and valleys of life. So, you know, when you're in a peak, it feels amazing. But then the valley comes, and that's who you really are. That's what you're dealing with. That's the tools that you're coming to the relationship or your life or your career or whatever it is. And it's in those valley moments where it's like, okay, let me not avoid this.
There could be peace down there.
Yes.
Right? Like you can find some kind of like homeostasis, acceptance, quietness.
Rather than spiraling every single time, life keeps lifing, because that's what life is going to do. And it's about learning to ride the waves. And the more I started to do more spiritual work, the more I started to be okay getting uncomfortable. It's like a period cramp, right? Like, you know, they're going to pass. You know, there's a purpose, right? It's like the cramping is because you're shedding. Mm-hmm. It's because it's allowing the old to be released. And so every time I feel my life start to contract, I remind myself, because I've done it so many times now, and I know a little bit better how to play the game. I'm not perfect at it, but I know I'm like, oh, okay, this is a contraction period. Because after this, if I sit with it and if I don't avoid it, I'm going to bloop, 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 bloop. And like Mario Brothers, I'm going to up level, and I don't have to learn this fucking lesson again.
That's right.
So let me sit here with this and let me pray for the guidance about how to like heal this and integrate this, because what's being revealed is asking to be healed. You don't have to keep learning the lesson because you already know it now. And I get to move on to the next thing. But it never stops.
No, it never stops. But my biggest life lesson up until this day, in the last, 34 years I have in this life, is that it gets better. It gets better. And just knowing that, like, even when I meet like young kids, like, 18, 15, you know, I know that they're feeling a bunch of things and they think they know everything and oh my God, shit is terrible. I always say like, look, it gets better. And it's so true. Like the 20s, they're a mess. You know, you're learning so much. But then 30s, some people say 30s were their best years. I have friends that say 40s were like, whoa, that's really like the time. And other people are like the 50s, and like things get better, you know, and that's what's kept me moving in life, and also what keeps me doing things without too much fear. And if ever fear comes up, it goes right back down because like, oh, it's gonna get better, you know. But I want to thank you so much for your wisdom today.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Yes, you're so amazing. I love the work that you do, and the grace and the attention that you approach all of it with.
Thanks, babe. It's not easy all the time. Yeah.
No, but the spin you put on it, the pixie dust, the Brianna dust you put on it, like it's felt and it's seen, and I love it.
I received that.
Go out there, find you. Where can we find you and your work? And
yoursoulmatementor.com is my website. You can find all the things there. At brianna.colette.com. At brianna.colette is my Instagram handle. And you can hit me up. I mean, listen, send me a DM, a voice note. Like, it's really me on the end of emails and stuff. Yeah, it's like literally me. So I'm always excited to connect with people. And I think that's one of the things I love about what I do. It's because I genuinely like helping people find their person. Like, nothing brings me more joy when I just had a client the other day send me a pregnancy announcement. Like, I live for this, or the picture of the ring. You know what I mean? Like, I'm very invested in helping people find their person. And so if this is you, if anything resonated, like, I'm really looking forward to holding space for you and helping you find your person, because this is what I'm here to do on this earth.
Yes. And if you love the podcast, follow on Spotify, rate the podcast, follow on YouTube, stay tuned for season 2. You can also listen on Apple. Everything's on Instagram, you know, link in bio these days. Everything is in link in bio. Thank you so much. I love you.
Thank you. I don't know how to do the thing.
Bye.